Okay, 4 o'clock on April 26th. Bring this meeting to order. We're gonna call a roll call to get started. Dave Ferguson. Here. Robert Tripoli. Here. Brett TV is on vacation. Carol Shannon.
Here.
John. Norm, that's myself, President Bill.
Here.
Christine, Christine. Todd Buchanan.
Here.
Pete.
Here.
And Tracy.
Here.
So the first thing we need to do is make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
So moved. Second.
Tim, you had some questions submitted prior to the last meeting?
Nothing was submitted, via email from the last meeting to this meeting.
Okay. That brings us to project planning, target areas and budgets.
Nothing, you didn't vote on the motion.
Right. All in favor?
All in favor? There we go. We've been working off and on, trying to come up with a planning for the target areas and what fits our budgets. And I know that Carol worked on that document for us. Over the last meeting, that's on the last page of the document, the packet. Everybody have a chance to read through that? Have any questions or comments they want to make on that?
There is an edit for the factors, the very last one, location of tap, petroleum and natural gas.
Okay.
Well, that underway was developed.
So I think, Tim, you had a visual of that for us last time, and I don't believe there was any cap wells under the water, they were all on shore.
No, they're under the lake.
They're under the lake.
Oh, yeah.
Right here. Just need to make that map up for us.
Need to know when the. Oh, you need to.
I do, that was for George, I sent it to George, all the committee, and George, I thought would tell me that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read that.
You didn't read it,
No, I mean, I didn't see that
Oh.
request.
okay, but I need the drawn down dates.
It's October 15th.
Something, 15,
Mhm.
2, and I need the words that go on that line.
It's based on temperature of the water.
39,
2. The first day,
It goes until the water temperature reaches 31 degrees, and then I'm supposed to start raising it. So we're at full pool at 39. That's what I thought it was.
raise until full pool.
At 39 degrees.
and we can only raise 4 inches a day.
6.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We're at full pool automatic anyway.
I'm getting fast.
You can't stop it if it rains and feels fast enough, even if the gates open, it is.
Yeah, I just, yeah. And it's kenneling, what is it, 6 what?
6 inches per day,
Per day? Thank you.
down. Either way.
So Tim's got his map back on the screen.
There.
That's-
Well, those were capped with permits back in the day, right?
I would have to say so.
With permits. Well, they probably didn't have to
Yeah,
have
this is
permits.
DNR's information, right, Tim?
Correct. You know, I would like to agree with you that they were all done with permits, but that oil field to the west of Lake Isabella, you know, was active in the 40s and 50s. I don't know what they did back then.
So
Whatever they want.
I'm sure that's gonna become part of our permit process. We have to make them aware that there possibly could be wells capped under our lake bed. But I have to assume that when they dragged this lake out to build it, to originally make the lake, those were all below.
This would be one pursuant to our current
For Matt,
project area.
but there's no way they dragged the lake before without noticing those, so they have to be below.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know how far below they were, I don't know if we can find that information out. Sure, you're probably gonna wanna know that.
They should know, they should be able to find it.
I would hope so.
Well, that information actually goes,
Tracy's in the know that, she'd have a better idea.
Yeah, they should have been on.
well, they do, but it goes to archive after 15 years, what they told me.
They're gonna be able to get
And,
there.
and where that archive is, I have no idea. It wouldn't be digital, it would be a paper copy someplace. Because I have no record of anything we did previously on the lake. Honestly, since I've been here.
I would assume that even if there were paper copies, they've been digitized since then.
They could have been, sure.
That's something you can try to track down, Tracy. So Tracy said she thinks she can try to track that down for us, and you'll say, and with that, that'll be really helpful. I mean, it doesn't appear there's a lot of areas that are gonna be impacted by this red, but
Tim, could you scroll that map north a little bit?
hopefully there's nothing else that
no.
we're not aware of.
Yeah.
Well, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I gotta be, those were capped back in the fifties, they had to have been noted when they did the actual formation of the lake itself.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure there must have been some kind of a safety factor. Between the rigs.
Some margin in
The
there.
ring bottom to the top of that cap.
You know, they can't dredge deeper than X amount
Right.
at this location or peel, I guess.
Personally, don't think it'd be an issue, but that's not my decision. So we'll wait to see what Tracy's able to find with that, hopefully, good news. George, you were working on the drawdown with the county,
Well, if not the county, it will end up being the state still.
okay?
He said that I can't, because it's set as a court order, that I can't change that unless we want to go back to court.
This one reopen it.
Yeah.
So we're capped at,
And I don't know that that's a good idea to do that, because we don't want to take it away either.
what's our max drawdown now in the court order?
6 feet.
6 feet?
And
10, up to 10 is what they had originally.
You can't go much below that anyway with the standpipe. So,
No, I've seen the top of the pipe about this far under the water when it's clear.
Yeah.
And no waves and stuff, which means there's only 5 foot left anyway.
right,
So,
I mean, I'll put this to the board, but I don't see any sense of trying to go lower than that, that's,
I don't know that it's necessary. If we get a good drawdown down on the front end.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to get that far down
Well,
anyway.
except it would give us a little cushion with Mother Nature.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't open it, try to hit that target, but I don't know if you can even hit that target. So, I mean,
Yeah.
It's been open for many years.
was it 3 years ago, it was open all winter, and it didn't get down more than about 2 foot, so.
well, when you're gonna go down at
Those
all.
are the kind of things we're up against, that you might not even.
Yeah.
Get into it on that year, can't control it. Okay,
Those. I was also asked about, putting in the Peninsula Drive project be broken into sections.
yeah,
And Brian said he would not recommend that.
Okay.
Because number one, the volume that we're talking about, it's still in the same location. So, you know, it's not like we're gonna have dotted lines out there on the ground that says this is A, B, C.
you don't have a transit to GPS on your foot.
Well, yeah, but what I didn't realize is he wants us, once we get to the point where we've made all the tests, the core, the composite and the base test.
Yep.
For instance, in that area, that all 3 areas will say A, B, and C.
Okay.
Submit that all for under one permit. Permit's good for 5 years, the testing's good for 10. And he said that way, and I didn't know that, he doesn't decide whether it goes or not. It goes to, because we had the little bit of arsenic in the 2 and the selenium in with the other one. He said it'll go to the state aquatic toxicologist first. And they decide if those levels are too high to expose it. Okay. Not him. And then it'll go to like the DNR and somebody else even above that. So it hits three more groups, if you will, to look at our plan and our test results to see if they will allow us to even do it.
Okay.
If it, I don't know how you could dig around test point 7 and not get some of that material, if you will.
Right,
And so he said, they will decide what you do with that material. You can take it anywhere, you can take it to some place and not disturb it, or it goes federal. But they tell me what you're gonna do with it. So he recommended we go ahead and do it all, see what we got as an overall test. Because if we've got a percentage of 98% clear, we'll probably be okay. But he did say, when I told him the volume, you know, that this is 70, the next one's probably 50, and the next one after that's probably another 20. And he went, whoa, that's, you know, like that's a lot. I said, mostly sand in the next two. But this one is more of behind that sand berm, if you will, and collects more of the
yeah,
deposits.
we'll rub over the burn
And it settles down. There's no more flow. So, he was kind of surprised by the cubic volume. He said, we don't hear of that much very often. So, especially in inland lake. And said, I would recommend you go ahead and test them all. Get that done, submit it all in one permit. You got 5 years to do it, because I said we might do part we'll do part next year, part
then.
4, part 7, but we can't do it all in one. But he said that permit is still good for 5, so as long as you get it done in 5, you're okay.
So we've tested the northern, or the eastern side of it, I guess I'll call it.
I call it A, yes.
So we don't have any idea what's farther west. Could be better, could be worse.
I think we're gonna hit, and that's why I hit Bill, I think this is what I was calling A right here. And then this was B, so we can open this up, and then this part was C. And that's why I was talking to Bill about doing the sieve test. For, if it was 90% sand, you don't have to do any test.
Right.
But it has to be documented 90%.
Right.
Where he said he may have access to that with the county.
But that can't be done, Bill, until drawdown, correct?
Right. Right. Or, well, I could take, I got the new auger, I could take samples now.
They'd have you wash it, would you?
They'll just have more water in it.
Would have to be water in order to test it.
Just dry it out.
Yeah,
That would save. That would save the Brighton Analytic testing,
that'll take a lot of money.
big time.
Yeah.
So,
So going back to your court order, they didn't seem to think there'd be any problems just to do that permit. As long as we don't open up or modify that, we're still.
we're still good for the 6. And if we open up, like Tim said, it is actually 10. From the original court order, we can draw down to 10, but we've never done it. Well, I think back in the day, they used to open it and let it run.
Yeah.
They don't do that now. It's regulated by these folks as for a 6.
Yeah, all the kidding was, it was way down. There was nobody behind, you just opened it on October 1 and they came back and April, something like that.
See, and that's the thing, if we can get a little bit of a margin, you know, when you're getting that low, the lake starts getting pretty flat. You're no longer on the downslope, so that's pulling your water line away from where you're wanting to work, which
Yeah.
if you get some rains instead of snow, that could help, but that's still gonna come up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it's flat.
Do you have any questions on that schedule?
So looking at the last page,
Yes.
okay, are there any, one of the things I did add also, a lot of the numbers, the second one, draw down to a depth necessary for a target area as allowed by permits, I added. I got that one. Any other things we need to add or any words you don't like, new words you'd like?
George, do they give any timeline on the, let's say, new permitting process? Like if it has to go to the multiple stages?
No, he didn't, but it has to be, especially because of the volume, in that project. that project. The rest of them I've gotten through in like 30 days, 40 days.
What was your, come remind me, just remind us in the group again, the cap before we came from minor to major, is it 10,000?
Yes,
10,000 is the red file, it's an EPA file.
it goes to the, yeah, it goes to the EPA. Which may be one of those last group in the
What are the
three.
chances of us getting all of the small areas done?
It's a lot easier, lot more quickly, done than such a large area as that, yes.
And I think I asked you last time about the previous tests you did in the river. It tested clean, but you did not have your composite at the bottom.
I had the composite, but not the bottom
Right.
test, correct.
So do they need that whole thing retested or just that very bottom of that hole?
Just the very bottom. Now, I did test a little arsenic in test point 5, I believe it was,
In the river?
in the river. It was just, again, a little bit,
Right.
but none in all the rest, nothing.
And that's natural byproduct.
And, it comes out of swamps, breakdown of materials, apples.
So does that area have to go to Lansing too then or no? Because it's the smallest yardage?
Well, I figure it's about 14,000 cubic yards. That's what I've been figuring for a couple of years now. On the surface, because you're looking at depth too.
Mhm.
And I couldn't touch the bottom, laying down on a pontoon boat with a 6-foot auger. And now I've got an 8-foot auger. I'm thinking I can hit it, but the water's only this deep. All the rest was material.
Right.
So so you take your surface cubic yard and then you got it one below that too.
So Bill, I've seen yards and yards and yards of dirt in your lifetime. How do they measure that? Because when it's wet, it's here, when it dries, it's compacted. How do we calculate? Yeah, or the state. I mean, we do the surface area times this depth, and we know it's probably deeper in areas which got with areas, but how do you get the real numbers?
The saturated waters, because that's what you take it out, that's what they're putting on here. Because when it dries, it won't be as much as it shrink down.
Right.
Still what you're taking out. That's my guess at it.
Yeah.
I've never really done it in water like
I was
that.
hoping that maybe we could get away with, if it was here, then it went to here, we could, maybe not monetarily, but as far as EPA or the Eagles concerned is, that would be actual garbage.
So when it's dry, do your drawing and everything instead of when it's wet. And because it's sponge.
Right.
It should shrink down a little bit during drawdown, so that give you some less, but I don't think it's going
I don't know if it's that much.
to,
Every little bit helps.
Probably get
Get some
6,
below
8 inches out of it maybe.
Good.
But I'm not gonna walk out there to test
I'll buy
it.
you some things.
That's what you need. I'm glad to use them 1 year.
Did you?
Okay, well, I think Carol's done a good job. With this verbiage.
Yeah, that's words, that's all I like, words.
I don't really have anything that I wanna change.
I like it.
I thought it was good.
So do we need a vote to move this forward, Tim?
I think it's just guidance at this point, isn't it?
And this is just, yeah,
Yeah.
this is the schedule that we'll put, that's what we agreed to put out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure.
I mean, if you're gonna set the schedule, then yeah, you should probably do that.
Well, I don't think we have a schedule set, we don't, well, you're trying to set a schedule, but
There's situations that will change it.
maybe we go to test the other days and they come back that we can't touch them at all. So then they get removed, or maybe they come back, saying that we don't need a permit, so save us more money, we can push that money somewhere else. That's the problem with the list. Is these could all be on the list, or half of them might be. So to get it in order,
it's a rough schedule based on the criteria.
That's right.
above.
All the variables.
I guess I'm not opposed to saying this, is what we'd like to do, put that in, say these are the areas we would, the order we would like to go.
Goals,
Yeah, and as funding allows or permits allow,
As all those other factors.
Testing.
right.
Well, Norm, could I suggest then? If we go ahead and test the Peninsula Drive area, all of it.
Mhm.
We'll know,
I don't, just for the record, I don't wanna test anything else until we know that this.
well, all I'm suggesting is we may find out. From a sand-based test, if you will, from Civ.
Yeah.
That we're gonna start saving money right up front out of that 100,000.
If that test is something that Bill said he thinks he can get done for us,
Right. So we can move some of that 100,000 for testing alone back out of
yeah,
that part of the
if
project.
if you wanna find a way to get that done,
Hopefully.
cause that doesn't, I mean, is that gonna cost us something, Bill, or not?
No, just in time.
So that's kind of a no-brainer. If that comes back all sand, that's gonna save us, did you pay $9,000 for last round testing? You did?
8,800, yeah.
Right. So if you don't have to test. a
For
bunch of
20,
that,
that was for
that's all
24
the money we
tests.
can put towards something else.
Exactly.
And that'll tell you whether or not that portion, I suppose, is gonna move forward or can move forward.
Yeah.
But as far as sending something back off to Brighton, I don't think I'd spend any more money.
No, I don't wanna do that. I wanna see if this test has sand.
Right.
If the test is sand, we can put that back, pull it back off the table.
Yeah, I'm all on board with that.
All right.
I just don't wanna spend any more money on testing to find out we didn't get the village passed and we spent $15,000 on testing to spend it somewhere else somehow, you know, a new seawall or a new park or whatever.
One of the other things that went out to the email committee was that it is my opinion that however we present this, that the criteria, the factors should be first and then the potential targeted areas, because I look at the list first and I think, okay, there's my park and I don't read anything else. Human nature is we stop.
Yeah.
So I'd like, hopefully people will read down and then go to the list, my theory.
I can't help you with that.
I know.
Good theory, let's.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna just pick the theory and be good with
But
it.
yeah, I'd love to see every one of these things gets done, and I'd like to see it could go in that exact order, but
Why not? That's right.
there's no, I don't say. Look at a job working for you. Okay. So. We talked about the target areas and budgeting, do we wanna talk about it? What we wanna do for village rates?
Yeah, we have to set it.
We're looking at that time.
Yeah, we have to set it tonight, or we can vote on it as a village council on the 15th.
So do we wanna start with a discussion, or do we wanna start with a vote on, or, you know, our thoughts on what we think is. Judging by Brent did some more calculations, there's calculations in this folder, what we see being able to get done. On what level. You've got on the form, he's got 3 and 3.5. I would love to see 3.5, but I don't think that's viable. I just think that's too much to ask people. And if we don't get this done this time, it may not get done.
I've talked to 10 or 12 people and they say, go for as much as you can. But I've also talked to a few lakefront owners that aren't interested in it at all for some reason. So. You know, as I explained it to them, the $300 for $100,000 a year, it doesn't seem like much, but sometimes it is for certain people.
Of course, in 12 years it ends up.
Yeah, and over 12 years, it adds up, correct? But the lake is in need.
We gotta sell that product, cause
Yeah.
if we wait another 10 years to try to do this, it'd be twice as much.
Yeah.
My thing is, you know, with 3.5 to get more projects done, maybe to a bigger yardage or a deeper depth or, you know, more square foot, sure. But I would be happy to have 3 mills and get as much done as we can than do nothing. Cause whether we like it or not, whether you live on the lake or don't live on the lake, if this lake continues to trend it's on, all of our house values are gonna fall. Because the golf course, that's awesome, a lot of people live here for that, but a lot of people live here for that too. So if that goes away, I think everybody's gonna pay the price.
Call it Lake Isabel for a
But I
reason.
mean, that's just reality.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's, to me, is an infrastructure just as much as a road or a park. Tennis courts, whatever, I mean, it's a reason why a lot of people come here, and it's a reason why our houses as a community, you know, our home values represent that. So I personally, I think 3 Mills is where our sweet spot is. But I'm only one person, there's a room full of people here that.
I'm with you.
Oh my.
I am
And-
too, and part of the reason is, last time we went for 275 and we was only gonna get
Yeah,
about half of that
George,
towards dredging.
Yeah, but we increased it.
I know the scope of it has increased immensely.
And so is the testing.
A lot of people's gonna have, a lot of people's gonna have to know that, and first thing they're gonna look for, they want more money, and that part's gone, and
Mhm.
so it's the point we're gonna have to get across. The project is a lot bigger,
well, I don't think you're
Or
gonna make,
maybe more expensive.
in the price of the minute, the way I say.
I don't think you're gonna make everybody happy with, no matter what number you choose. I mean,
Right.
someone's area didn't get dredged as much as they wanted, and someone over here didn't get, they wanted, so everybody's gonna have to concede something to get the overall project completed.
We gotta know we can get the lion's share of what's on that list. It may not be your number one for that, folks, but it'll be. As money becomes available, it's gonna get done.
And
Well, we're talking about the health of the lake.
Tim, I ask a question. In the newsletter, would we put some verbiage that about what we asked for in the past and what we're asking for now to explain?
Yeah, it's definitely important.
That's good. That would be important. So people who read it would understand.
I think part of that verbiage should kind of have a budget that shows, if possible. You know, we tested the river a long time ago and it was next to nothing for how much it cost.
Right, so it was $3,000.
Right, so now it's $9,000 and it's a bigger area, but it went up. And you're gonna have, part of this cost is gonna be, if we access out of park, we have to put that park back the way it was, or we access it through somebody else's property. You're gonna destroy the grass, you're gonna destroy the soil. You gotta put all that back, that's all covered, that's in the verbiage of that millage. But I can't remember the exact line it was, but it talked about any other things tied to the
Without limitations.
limitations, that's what that means. Just those, if that's not in there, somebody can come back and sue us and say, well, you used dredging money to replant the grass in that park, so that verbiage sounds nefarious, but it's not, it's there because we have to use that money to fix what we damaged.
Fix what we screw up.
Right.
So I'm going to add that to our criteria where we have preparation of targeted dredging area. We need something after that that says return of the targeted.
Remediation of said property, or whatever you want to say it.
Access point restoration.
Yeah.
And
We also talked about fish restoration and then we
Yep,
got down
that
there.
should be there as well, because we're definitely gonna kill some fish during this process.
We're gonna have some fish fries.
Follow the net, bunch of fish and take them home. But
Take all the carpet.
I think there should be a budget number, which we work through different areas. I think Brent had some too for soil remediation and testing. That should be on that same newsletter that says all these items are tied to it, so this portion of your money goes to fix everything, repopulate the lake, test all the areas where they tested, so that's all. And there's money we had to pay to even put this on a ballot, so all that stuff comes into play. I think people should be aware of all the items that are,
So other budget items. Because those are kind of other things, but you're right, the cost just.
they're all, it's just, if you wanna make it called a budget breakdown, or however you wanna word it,
Okay.
People wanna know what they're paying for.
or should know, it's their money.
Now, as far as the village is concerned, at the last meeting, we had said that, we would underwrite the costs. Because you guys have underwritten the cost of, the testing,
Yeah, I think it was like a cost sharing, I mean, we're both
Right.
trying to, I mean, obviously you guys have
but
more revenue than the LiPo
we
does.
decided that, we would underwrite the cost of the election.
Oh, okay.
So that gives you a little more money for testing.
The testing coming forward from the back, should come out of that millage at one point in time.
I don't think Lipo has enough money to test everything.
Right,
Yeah.
but you've
But
already
I mean,
expended.
it's part of the
some cash.
project, so it should be
Right.
part of the millage.
Right, that is the plan, but the difference is that you already expended, what, 8,800, I think.
Yeah.
for testing. That will be part of this, should it go. And the cost of the election is slightly more, but in that same range, so.
Yeah, it helps, and there, it helps. So if we can get those wrote into the newsletters, you know, and your side, George, and Tim's side. Or on your.
Well, I think what we ought to do, and then I was gonna suggest it to Tim is. Whatever is, what you're writing, honestly, right now, in how your verbiage you use in your newsletter, I think it needs to be in both, the same thing in both newsletters.
You speak with one voice.
Mhm.
You know, I'm writing my manager's notes right now, and I've got a paragraph on the dredging, just general stuff, you know, that we're having meetings and et cetera, but nothing specific at all. So, I think it's important that honestly, from here on out, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, I think it'll be a village, I mean, the purpose of the whole newsletter is the millage, correct?
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
dedicated communication just to the
Yes,
village.
just-
Right, and that's just a slick you're sitting out or something? Or a newsletter?
Yeah, it'll be, yeah, you know, our newsletter is 11 by 17, double sided.
So it'll be separate. than the normal.
It'll be separate than the normal newsletter. We're not gonna just cram it into like, you know, here's the back page. you know,
Or-
Yeah,
you know.
right.
Basically, an FYI.
Is there a way it could be summarized like on a one page so I can have that an insert, maybe? Or front and back, maybe?
We can do something.
Oh, George. I
Okay,
get it,
so-
I get it.
That,
I got my own stuff to put in.
I get
excuse me.
I don't do format either, so.
We went through Carol's letter, we added quite a few other things on there. But that still brings us back to the village amount. Seemed like it was the general consensus that 3 mils is the sweet spot for getting as much as we can get done and not asking for too high of a number. I don't, does anybody else have any other?
I did want to add one thing to the committee, just so you're aware of it. It doesn't change your discussion at all, but we did have an email from Pat Woodhall a couple of weeks ago, right around the last meeting. And he asked, you know, a question about where's the river start and where's the lake start, that kind of thing. And then, so it got me thinking, so I asked our attorney, like, you know, should we change the language a little bit to include the river to make sure that there's not going to be any questions that come up down the road about where that is? And so the language that's in the packet says without, for the purpose of funding lake and river improvements. So that covers both. That was insignificant in terms of the amount, but I want to make sure that you guys were aware that I hadn't changed that specifically, so we didn't ever get pushed back on the river work.
But it's within the boundaries of the village to start with.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then technically, USGA or not USGA, whatever it is. The river starts right here. This is 895. That's the same height as the still line.
Okay.
And that's why this starts widening and slowing down right there. Because that's 895, this is 895, and that's on my maps in the office.
Okay.
So this is,
So we're
technically where the lake starts, right here.
Okay.
Which we call the river. So
Was Queensway in the river or lake?
that's in the lake.
Yes.
But Riviera is in the river.
Riviera's in, no,
Lake.
Riviera is in the lake. Everything we're getting ready to touch is in the lake.
Perhaps the word we're looking for is impoundment, not lake.
Yeah.
Well, true.
So Tim,
I agree.
as we talk about this millage, do we need to have some type of a vote to say what we want to move forward with?
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Yeah.
Who's gonna make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion for 3.
I'll second
Let's have a vote. Everybody say aye or no, aye or nay. Aye. Unanimous. Okay. So we're gonna shoot for 3 mills and hopefully we can get everything done on our wish list. If you guys don't have anything else to talk about on the target areas of the budget, let the residents have the comments. Anything else they want to talk about?
Is there anything we're missing, Tim?
No. No, not this stage of the game.
Okay, so at this time, we're gonna open it up to our public comments. We'll start on this side of the room and work that way. So anybody has a question? Go ahead, state your name and address, please.
Tim Clark, I'm at 6613 West Little Fairway over here. I'm not sure, I came in late, I apologize for that. But are you aware that the county commissioners are looking at raising or trying to put on the millage? They want a 3 mill raise too for the county because the county apparently is going broke. I don't know if you guys realize that or not.
County's gonna vote on this village?
No.
The county commissioners are looking at a 3 mill, asking for a 3 mill in November as well, because the county is apparently going broke, according to, Nicole, Frost, et cetera, the control of the county. So they're looking at that as well. So you could be talking residents having 6 mills in front of them. So
Gotcha.
just let you know.
Good, thank you.
They're shooting for November for their election.
I believe so.
Yeah, we're gonna in August.
Yeah, we're in August.
Oh,
There we go.
Well, that's good then. I believe that it's still not definitive yet, as far as I know. Again, I'm not on the thing, but according to, Chris Embry and that, they're looking, I believe, at November for a 3 mil. Somewhere in there, there may be a 2, 3, they're just throwing out where they're gonna be a shortfall for the next,
I feel where they're at right now.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You have a question, sir?
Since,
I know you spoke last time, you still gotta give it.
I know, okay, Dennis here, 1002 Carver Drive. Could you give us kind of a heads up how either how the schedule is written and and how the proposal is gonna be sounded?
So your proposal is actually in your.
We didn't get it back.
We don't have one either.
It's online. We can put it online.
Yeah,
no packet, just,
It's online.
Oh, we got it.
But it has the ballot claims on here.
Right. That's okay, we didn't get, so I don't know.
The schedule is talk about that.
Right, I know that.
We're still, that's still, like I said, say it again, that's still the primary area is the river. Everything you do there is gonna come back in. But it's all- So far, we're sitting in one area that has arsenic in there, and they're gonna tell us what we can or cannot do with that area.
And I understand that basically the larger area that you say that arsenic or selenium or whatever's in will smooth out.
That was, I'm not, I don't work there, but that makes sense to me. If you have this many cubic yards, you only have one spot, it's gonna seem like it's enough to avoid that area,
Well,
but I don't get to make that decision. So I think if personally, I think it's not gonna be an issue, and I think, you know, it could be totally wrong, and maybe they just say, like you said, this area, 20 by 20 area, you have to go around this somehow, you know.
Just so everyone's aware, literally on the homepage of our website, right in the middle, you can click on it and get the full packet for today's meeting. Or if you go to there's today's packet right there. Or over here, you go to meeting minutes. You can get council, you can get planning commission, you can get this committee, you can get ZBA, all the packets, all the minutes, and the recordings of the meetings that are on YouTube.
And it'll have all the prior readings as well, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we did record the first 3 when we were organizing the committee, and then we had an audio issue on March 29th where we just got video, we didn't get audio.
Okay.
But planning commission, council, all those meetings are up there recorded as well. You just click on it, it'll take you, right to your most recent meeting of council.
So you guys can all, anybody here or anybody online, that's something to go back and get everything we talked about from the beginning. And if you guys wanted to print them off, we'll print off statements and be at home or share with the neighbors, obviously available for everybody to get them.
One other. I know how money dictates
Mhm.
and everything, and testing dictates. But who decides where it gets done when? And,
This board will decide, so. Again,
right,
River is the primary, I don't
well,
know
I
how many times I can
understand,
say
you know,
that.
that's my thing,
But that project is a couple $100,000,
right, and I.
so we can't do anything, at least for the first year.
Mhm.
So we may take a portion of that first year and try to find a smaller bay somewhere that, if we did that small bay, and we collect the money next year, we have more than enough to do the river, so even though that's our priority, there could be a small 5,000 yard bay somewhere that fits that criteria, that we can get something done and show the community that, hey, we collected your money, we're starting this process.
I'm just looking. Hypothetical scenarios,
Yep.
whatever. You start somewhere else and also it costs more.
We,
And then
George
something else.
did reach back out to the company that gave us the project.
No, I'm just saying if you find something else or you encounter something that's not there,
Right.
a wellhead that's not supposed to be there.
Then that obviously is gonna have, that project have to stop.
Well, that project would have to stop.
Well, but I'm just saying, if it costs more, if something else is back. You know, it's a domino effect.
Yep.
The second year, okay, don't have it, it's maybe third year.
George did reach out to the contractor that gave us, it was Batten, correct? They gave us the price, and George reached out to them prior to this meeting. And they reaffirmed that that number is still accurate for that project, so that project, unless there's something that's uncovered even when we start that one,
Right.
that could domino another project, so. To not start a project is because it might domino another one doesn't make sense, we have to start somewhere. So I know that's your priority,
Well, I
and
understand.
we start that, it screws up four more, then everybody says, well, why'd you do that one?
I want everything to
We're in
get
a
done,
good
but-
situation.
Correct. I
And
am
setting schedule at this point in time is
No,
virtually impossible.
I would like everything to get done, but I know that's where Peninsula Point is the problem, is because Riviera and Queensway,
I doubt that.
you know, it's not dropping there anymore, it's
Yeah.
going all the way down.
And we'll continue.
Yeah,
Yep, agreed. Okay, we have no questions.
I'm Kate Shear, 1002 Carmen Drive. You used a word, that would encompass the river as part of Lake Isabella. What was it?
Impoundment. We're
Because,
technically an impoundment.
and I appreciate that because I am really tired of people that live on the lake feeling like, well, we're not part of Lake Isabella. We are Lake Isabella. And there is a segregation here that it just needs, the information needs to be out there. The verbiage needs to be out there. That the river is Lake Isabella, not in its own entity.
I think that's what Carol just.
Exactly, but I appreciate that and really think that needs to be emphasized. This is not two projects.
You technically live on the lake.
well, that's,
Yes,
well, that's what I think, what George just pointed out, should be kind of, that the lake actually starts north of Riviera.
Starts at the elevation. of the
Yeah,
elevation.
at elevation, but it's considered all one entity.
Yeah,
There,
correct.
people refer to it as river because it narrows down. like-
Right. you know,
And it's been that way for 50 years,
Mhm.
so.
But the change in the verbiage has to start someplace, and I think it's excellent that we're pursuing that.
Okay. Sure.
Richard Most, 1007 Carmen. If you will, take a second and kind of give me an idea. I've never been around this before, not this particular dredging situation. Can you kind of explain to me how this is going to happen? Is the dirt, whatever, that we're taking out of the river, is that gonna be piled somewhere and then removed later? Which leads me to my second question, and that is our street in good enough shape
then we're not gonna completely destroy them hauling all of this debris out of Lake Isabella area?
So for the river standpoint, the river is going to be a hydraulic or a vacuum dredge. That's going to take place when the lake is full. They're actually going to run a pipe from the river all the way north. We have hopefully have it worked out with the resident to use their property. So they line the property with a membrane. They pump all the sediment, oils are gonna pump into that pond. It slowly leaches the water back down to the lake. So that's not gonna touch the roads at all, and they're gonna pump this stuff, what was it, how many yards?
That's roughly 14,000 cubic yards.
No, the length of the pipe.
It's 8,200, I think, or 8,700.
So we're gonna pump it almost 9,000 feet away from the lake, so that's not gonna touch the roads at all.
And we actually have to have a lift pump because it's so far.
When
And it's
it
actually
starts
one of-
going uphill, it doesn't have enough pressure, so it has to have another pump in the middle of the line to keep it moving.
Because it's going uphill, honestly, the whole way. If 895 is there, it may be going up to, 904 or something. See, one of my stakes and one of my test points right behind his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that still there?
About my knowledge.
Okay, we'll check for you. Because I've got to go back to those points, because I use stakes with marking. And, one of them is straight behind his house, right here. And so this is gonna affect him directly, just as it is your mother, right next door. So those are things that, and the shears are right across the street over here, so that they're gonna see when we project starts setting up, if you will, because it's gonna take some time to set that up just to get going, but it's only gonna take 4 to 6 weeks, he said, once they get going.
Well, this is gonna take a minute to lay 9,000 feet of pipe to get where you want to go.
No, that's what he said, though. I suppose it's shallow enough to upstream, you can walk with it. Snap fitting it together.
So the second part you asked about the roads, I'd probably defer to Tim on that. I don't know if that's a question we have to ask the contractors that we get prices from, what they can carry in each truck without damaging the roads. That may be something we have to put in with the price of, when we put out a packet that says we want a price to do this. We may have to ask them.
Well, I just want it to be addressed by somebody, because next thing we find out is we've got potholes everywhere. At least now the roads are, I think, in decent shape considering. So if we have to turn around then and come up, allocate some more money to redo the roads, now we're right back where we started. And unfortunately, I mean, it's the roads versus the water, but it's still there.
Yeah, the roads in my eyes, that's a question maybe Tim can answer about how much weight each road can carry. And honestly, some of it depends on where we take the spoils.
That's very
So,
true.
and we're going to store, if we can, have the ability for each individual area will be different. If we have a process or an ability to store material on a park somewhere while that water leaches
That
back
was my
out.
concern.
And
right
then we move the dirt after it's had a chance to dry. That will help save the roads and it'll be much lighter. But every one of these areas is different. I mean, there's smaller areas that maybe you can't get big trucks into, maybe they do it a different way. So until we actually have a number of quotes back from, qualified contractors, I don't know how to honestly answer that 100% correctly.
And George, if anything's missing, the squirrels did it.
Jerry Sigler, 1056 El Camino, which means I'm on Bonita Bay, which I see sometimes not on a list, sometimes at the bottom of a list. And I'm concerned about that. 2 reasons. One, as I look at the spending, it's hard for me to imagine with cost overruns and inflation that we don't run out of money before we get to the bottom of the list, particularly at 3%, rather than something potentially higher, which I would personally support. The other thing is when we had our one nice warm weekend day a couple weeks ago, put my boat in.
Enjoy your summer, it's almost over.
Yeah. And with my depth finder, I live on the west end of that bay.
Okay.
And my depth finder said it was shallower there. I rode around the whole lake, in and out of every bay, never found another area that was as shallow as that. And so I'm still kind of trying to understand how we end up at the bottom of
So.
you don't want to call it a priority list, but in essence, that's what it is.
We put areas of concern on the map. And now we've had certain, I think Tim did a few projections about how many, each area, how many people that would affect or would make better or worse for essence, their area. We've, since this map you're looking at here, have made changes. We're trying to find ways to fit everything into the budget. So I did that map as a first draft back in March, maybe? Yeah. So we also talked so we have the Birch Park, which is where the boat launch is on your side. That area will probably get shrunk down because it's over a certain yardage, which takes us into a different permit. So if we start shrinking some of those to get those down under the limit, I think the boat launches to me are priority because that's where everybody gets in out of the water, no matter what looks like in front of your house, you gotta get to your house.
And
And the river, the area by the clubhouse, that's also the area that can probably get shrunk way down. Most of that is deep, it drops off pretty quick, it gets kind of like the area back in that corner, it gets bad. I can't remember the name of the park, George, across from the condos. Birdie, so Birdie, that part, there's a number of boats there, I don't know, won't pretend to tell you how many slips there are.
19.
Okay, so there's 20 people that use that area, so I feel that should be included, but that becomes such a small area. As opposed to what it was, it's probably 2/3 smaller than it was. So even, I think we made some changes to the area. Back off Peninsula Drive, the one that goes back into the Leo Park back in there, George?
Leo's, yes.
Yes, and then there's that area around the island. So we're trying to find ways to make those areas accessible for routes in and out. Shrink down the overall cubic yards that need to be removed there, so we can spread this around. And we have that one test point in Peninsula that has the arsenic, maybe they come back and tell us we can't do anything, I don't know. But the reason that area is on the map is because that opens up that entire area of the lake where everybody's taking the kids tubing, water skiing, wakeboarding, whatever, and it spreads the boats out. So now everybody uses the river because that's where it's deep enough. So we're trying to find the areas that will benefit the greatest amount of people. I'm not trying to minimize not me personally, the group is not trying to minimize your area just because it's only used by a few people, but we have to. I see your point. What if somebody else comes back and says, we did do mine, which did that bay back there, it's 4 houses back there, whatever it is. We're trying to do what we can do to make everybody happy. Unfortunately, I don't think that's possible.
And you may not be the last year.
No.
If it's a small enough project, it may be included in another small project that year if we have money to do it.
And that would be great, but I just fear that it's more likely to
Right now, I think.
fall off the
The
list.
list, just because of the scope and the size, Peninsula Drive honestly might be some of the last ones on there. I just don't know.
Something else Dave Ferguson brought up a couple meetings ago is, well, you guys are looking at pretty defined numbers here, 200,000, 1,500, whatever it is. But give yourself some margin there. It may be a little plus, a little minus. And you get out there and it's not as bad, well, that just saves us money every time. You might get into one that's a little worse. But the majority of us, myself included, have seen all these areas. And as Norm said, some of them are overstated. And some of them don't need as much attention as others. Back in your bay, I've walked in it in the middle of winter, and it's very sticky. Birch Bay, just based on design, how his computer program works, it's a lot bigger than what we actually need. It's just, we just need it out in the
I
middle.
cut that one the last time I did it by, I don't know, not quite half. but
9,500 cubic yards on this map you made.
What I made today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
it's even
I think
smaller.
it's gonna be less than that.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's what we're keeping
And
the
that's,
range.
see, where we save those cubic yards, because we can only base it on cost per cubic yard.
Mhm.
That's all you, only way you can do that. And, if it's 4,500, well, we've saved, 8,000 cubic yards from the original estimate, which at $13 a cubic yard or whatever it's gonna be. I mean, that starts adding up real quick, and you're holding that back in your account to do a bigger project, to do these smaller projects that are out on the ends of these bays and things, so.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to feel like that math is what, that's the gospel, that's what we're doing, because it's not.
Because until we get out and with our sticks, manually do this, when the water's down again, to define these numbers of what we really think is there. They said Riviera was originally 9,000. This still says 9,000, it may be less. Or not Riviera, I'm sorry, Queens.
It could be more because of the depth, I don't know.
Queens Park, I mean, but, so we just need to get out to the channel there. So it's 50 feet, that's nothing. So these numbers will be tweaked the whole time. And, as we're able, when they set up the plan of where we're gonna go next year, or this fall, if you will, this winter.
Still have to vote on every time we take it down.
I know, but we'll go out and we'll measure that stuff, make sure the test results are in. We have to pre-plan that stuff so that we can take action that next drawdown.
And without the millage, we get nothing.
Without the millage, nothing
I mean,
happens.
there's a lot of background work that nobody ever even sees before these kick off. So,
And all I can do is encourage you to keep coming to meetings and just watch the process, I mean. Hopefully this, the village passes and we should keep going forward, but that's not a guarantee either, we're gonna have to go do.
How does your model address inflation 8, 10, 12 years from now?
Doesn't, because if we did that, the millage rate is so high.
There would be no
it
millage.
would pass, I mean, you know as well as I do, everybody through, whatever it costs today is not gonna be much for the next 12 years.
And so you are factoring in growth in property values, so you're factoring in more money coming in as
I'm
values
that,
grow.
yeah,
But if you're not factoring in the inflationary costs of doing the work, then it's hard to imagine how anything near the bottom of the list can get done.
I totally understand your point, but I mean, what's your?
You're thinking
Well, and I guess that's why I would have preferred to see a more aggressive millage rate that could actually be slightly more assuring to some of us that we'd we'd actually see benefit of it.
Correct, yeah, but I understand your point, I personally would pay more to get it done quicker to try to save some inflation, but that unfortunately gets out of people's budget and just.
And I'm seeing the benefit in the lawn tramps being done and the big area out in front of Peninsula being done. Of course, we're talking about schematics of filling in small projects with big projects to make our money work. But the real focus should be on the stuff to make the main body of the lake work for the most people, like Norm's talking about. The bays are gonna get done because they need to get done, but to tell you that you're gonna get done third, foolish.
And we're not
To
telling
tell you that you're gonna get done last,
either.
again, as foolish. It's not gonna be like that.
If you tell me I'm gonna get done, I'll shut
We
up.
can't even tell
I
you
know
that.
That's.
Can't even tell you that.
We're sorry.
But see, there's a whole list of things, which is why it's all contingent on the first bullet points that we brought up is contingent on permits, disposition of the spoils, drawdown, Mother Nature plays a huge part in that. All kinds of different things that we've tried to make recompense for, but we don't know. We just don't know. Yeah, that's the dream list. Yeah, I wanted 5 million. Okay, but I know that's unrealistic to pass. It's just not gonna, and if we don't do anything, our lake's gonna die. It's not healthy now. It's not as healthy as it could be. We're at that tipping point where we have to do something or property values will go down. It's exponential.
Make sure there's no questions, no questions there, okay.
I know this is an unpopular, thought, but, in regards to safety on the lake. I live in Lake Isabella, but I have to live up the river. I do see the need for Peninsula. I mean, that stands out like a sore thumb. I personally see a lot of high-powered boats out there that are too big for this lake. The motorcycles, too much, too fast for this lake. I don't know what's gonna have to happen before we slow this, because we're losing water. I mean, there's just not a place for kids to be out there skiing and tubing, and then you've got your paddle boarders out there standing up and trying to get across, and you've got the jet skis bombing in and out. Has there been any consideration for regarding safety, to think about limiting motor size, speed, perhaps
I don't
the
know.
time of day when people can do certain activities?
I don't know. if
Those are decisions entirely in the jurisdiction of the Michigan Department of Natural Resources.
Not ours.
The village, the LIPOA, and the Isabella County Sheriff cannot do anything without the DNR's blessing with regard to that.
I feel your pain, I've been here since 1971, and when I was here, it was a third of the houses. And on the 4th of July weekend, it was 10 boats.
Yeah.
10 boats on the water, I mean, you never saw anybody here, the whole lake was myself, I had.
And here's the 1970, you're sooner than you would, I think you said a third of the houses
Well, I don't know, that's a guess. but
Yeah.
I can tell you
I
that
bet there was only-
after Labor Day, at night, you look across the lake. There
Yeah,
was no lights in houses.
you didn't hear anything either.
That's why the fishing was so good back then too, right?
Yeah, who's my eagle?
Plus it was deeper.
By improving the health of the lake, we're gonna hopefully improve the health of the fishing and habitat.
We can't do nothing for as long as we get expected not to get, the condition we're at now, so that's why we're all here, you know. In a perfect world, and then make the whole lake, like, unlimited funds and magic wand, but. Okay, anybody else have any comment or committee have anything else they want to talk about? That's the list.
Well, just as a reference, for every cubic yard,
I knew this.
for every cubic yard that's taken out of this lake, of the lake bottom, that's 67 more gallons of water for our habitat. So if we're looking at 200,000 cubic yards, as we originally were, as a best case, that's a lot of gallons of water we're putting back in for the habitat. Deep water.
And we're also getting rid of some of the invasive weeds that we have.
Yes, we are.
So Tim, if we did our vote on the village, that you feel that that's our best scenario we can get away with and get this project started, funded. There's no more comments from.
Yeah, one more, just a question. It's in reference to what George just said about the amount of water that's gonna be put in. Gained. Is that gonna make the current faster?
No, your flow is the same.
It might.
Your flow is gonna be same.
Once
The
it hits
flow
that
will be
level,
the same.
stops.
And that, cause I'm just, cause that would increase other stuff. if the
Well,
current
what'll be
kicked in.
interesting with this, if, let's say all this is done, we're done with it, and we've taken out X amount of cubic yards. And we do a drawdown, 6-foot drawdown. There's gonna be deeper water underneath that surface.
Right.
We don't, as users of the water surface, let's say, we don't get to see the work.
Mhm.
The fish get to use it.
Right.
But we don't, other than boating in it.
Which should help keep the temperature cooler being.
That's correct. You're gonna have better fish quality at deeper water because, well, there will be deeper water because it's cooler.
I'm just saying, it's not gonna cause a problem upstream or downstream, that they're gonna come back to us.
No.
No, once the
Water
water.
flow is-
95.
Right,
Water flow is water flow.
okay.
And we can't, I mean, your water flow 3 weeks ago when the snow did rain was high.
Yeah.
But once it goes back down to the level it's at now, we're not quite back to normal, still a little bit higher, aren't we?
We were at 5 inches over this morning. I actually closed the gate down to 7 inches from 14. Just slow it down a little bit more, so. But we typically get about 114 cubic feet per second inflow. So that's just our inflow, normal dry conditions. That won't change unless we get rain, things like that upstream from us.
We've talked to the tribe and they seem to be on board with what we're doing and they don't want this sediment leaving our lake. And going on the reservation, so they're in favor of what we're trying to do.
I just don't want, we did this and now somebody else downstream said, no.
I think the Dean Harbor's on, they were,
We get our dam inspected, so it's not going anywhere.
I know, well, when we put all the rock, we had to put the screens in and all that.
George, how'd you figure that? How'd you get that value of gallons per cubic yard?
Well, cubic yard is 3 by 3.
27 cubic feet.
27 cubic feet. Well, a 1 cubic foot has 7.46 gallons of water in it.
201 gallons of water per cubic yard.
201?
My mathematician just said it was 201.
Could be happening.
Yeah, that's why.
Good 7.48 gallons, I think, per cubic foot.
I thought 7.46.
Okay, you're at 70 degrees, I'm at 60 degrees.
That's true.
So. We're set with our bond language then, Carol's gonna work on the newsletter, you have what you need to send this out.
Yeah, if you were gonna meet, follow the same 2-week pattern, it'd be the 10th, which would be the Wednesday prior to the council meeting. I would say at least reserve that as a what if something does come up.
Okay.
But potentially I would look then to meet again on the 24th and we could start talking about setting a schedule for, meetings in the summer, how we want to advertise, community forums, that type of stuff. Definitely can do some of that through email as well, just to prime that discussion, so it's a more
Yeah.
productive meeting.
So your thought is not to have a meeting May 10th unless we have something wrong with the ballot proposal?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have done all you can do at this point in time.
Okay. And,
Well, we don't need it.
no, Tim.
Just reserve it.
Just keep it reserved, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Save the date.
Carol can share her letter when she gets it done. She did a good
I'll
job.
just send it to y'all.
Yep, that worked out perfect last time.
Okay.
Then you, George and Tim can work on your announcement with Carol's letter you're gonna send out, so you guys all have the same information on both sites.
Exactly.
And direct them back to the website or whatever you want to do. And then I know we're still gonna have meetings going forward. Again, look out on your website and Jim's website for what the next meeting may be. I think, Jim, you were talking about doing some informal meetings.
Yeah, so like we did last time, in the fall, we had, 8 meetings here, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, 6 or 8, I think it was 8. Bouncing around different days, different times to hopefully accommodate different schedules, so.
So I don't know how.
I think that would be something worthwhile to look at again, but we did those, closer to the election, so you'd be looking at June, July-ish when you'd be looking at those.
Between the two of you, do you want to try to set up dates for that? Just so that, I think when you put the information letter out, we should probably have.
Those dates in
date
there,
on
correct.
So people don't have to go back and try to find it.
And we actually, Tim, in doing so, we don't know what dates the committee would be.
Correct,
available
so
either.
probably send out like a doodle poll to them on days and times that work best.
Because of their work schedule, honestly.
Because those work best having people hear from the committee like we did in the fall.
I think we need them here, as many as we can get.
You guys can both put them on your kiosks and
Mhm.
let as many people know as we can. That's what we're trying to do, is educate everybody on the process and let them know this is the plan going forward, so. Not the time to figure out what's happening when you walk in the ballot box. Let's try to get
No.
information out ahead of time.
And cut down on the room.
24th and 10th is just a baby, and
Cut down on the rumors too, if we can get some information out.
okay, no more questions online, Tim?
Nope.
More questions from the audience, members? Okay. 10 after 5.